So, this is a pretty wild and almost unbelievable subject, in my opinion, that I think deserves more attention. Years ago, I discovered someone named Chris Robinson when I was doing research for a documentary I was working on and still hope to finish someday. The documentary is basically about predictions of something like the terrorist attacks on 9/11, littered throughout history, entertainment, and culture, with some going all the way back to Nostradamus and the Bible. Chris Robinson, or also known as the Dream Detective, was someone who claimed to have predicted the 9/11 attacks in his dreams. And he claims to have predicted many other things and has even worked with law enforcement to help solve crimes using his dreams. If you do a search for the Dream Detective or Chris Robinson on YouTube, you probably won't find a super lot of videos about him, and most of them will likely not have a high amount of views, unfortunately. Yet, searching for the Dream Detective and Chris Robinson and watching all the videos I could find ended up being one of the most life-changing things I ever did. He did some experiments in my home state of Arizona, which was done with, quote, experts, and he essentially demonstrated his ability to such a convincing degree that I had some of my concepts of reality challenged. You can find those videos on YouTube, however, it is a bit disorganized and can be a bit difficult to sort through. In one of his videos, I remember he explained how he does what he does and how he asks his dreams the night before to see something that he'll see in person the next day or further onward. And when I experimented and tried it out, I got like 10 out of 10. And some of them were sort of unlikely seeming, and it really amazed me and propelled me into further research. I wouldn't necessarily say it always works, but it worked for me the first 10 out of 10 times I tried, and that blew my mind. And since then, I also started keeping a dream journal and have had incredible revelations in my dreams, and I even believe that I saw the future a couple times. The most amazing one was when in my dream I saw my father, who is a photographer, got some pictures of a deer and a rainbow in a very specific place in Sedona near where I live. Then a year later, within one day, and it might have even been the exact day if it was a leap year or something. I should try to go back and check that sometime and see. But anyways, 1 year later, within one day, my father got a picture of a deer and a rainbow at that exact spot I had in the dream. And that really made me believe that there is something to this. I mean, what are the odds of that? I also had some other smaller ones happen, where, for example, I had a dream about a specific friend on the internet who I hadn't talked to in like months, and then I woke up to see that there was a message from them. Oh, I should also mention that I had never dreamed about that friend before in my life that I can remember. So once again, what are the odds of that? If these cases weren't some kind of precognitive dreams, and they were just somehow purely coincidental, the odds just boggle my mind and are beyond astronomical. Another thing I've been doing is I often ask my dream state, or I refer to it as my God self, my higher self, my dream self, my true self. I say that like a mantra, and I ask certain questions before bed, and I've been able to learn some really amazing things that have changed my life. There's sort of an art to it. I would say it's very similar to doing something like tarot cards, where you have to do a bit of symbolic interpretation. For example, if you ask a question and get a certain card symbol that can reflect certain qualities, and then you apply that to what your question was, and sometimes it can produce profound realizations. It's really weird and hard to explain how it works from a scientific sense or logical manner, yet one way that Chris Robinson described it in one of the Arizona experiment videos is that it's kind of like a hologram, which reminds me of the holographic universe theory and the idea that the whole of something can be contained within all the individual parts, and you only tend to lose a bit of resolution each time, but the whole is still there in each part. Of course, we can all have different interpretations for symbols, and for example, I think Chris Robinson says that dogs represent terrorists or terrorism to him. And I don't feel like that is a universal archetype, so to speak. I feel like we can develop our own personal understandings of what symbols might mean. And that doesn't necessarily make it wrong. Who knows what the truth really is? Are there truly universal archetypes? Or is it subjective? My point is, you can develop a system where certain symbols mean certain things, and then use that to very, in my opinion, surprising results, which is kind of similar to how mnemonic pegging memory systems work. And I feel like there's a strong connection there as well, because based on my understanding, the brain often tends to think in pictures or symbols and associations as well. So the more ways we can learn to create associations for symbols, the more different ways we can understand a given thing and also remember it. This subject reminds me of remote viewing and the Stargate project, where the CIA acknowledged that remote viewing is essentially a real thing. They also claimed that it was not reliable enough, and so they stopped looking into it. What if there's a way to make it more reliable, like the way the Dream Detective does? Also, I don't remember where I found it, but I think the military is still putting money into some of these kinds of programs to detect the future through precognitive means like dreams. I tend to think they are still working on some of these kinds of things, even if they deny it. I'm reminded of that movie Minority Report, and I believe they likely know a lot more than they are telling us. I found a new interview with him, well, around a year old, but new to me, and he talks about an experience where he had a heart attack and was sort of dying and floated up into a light where there was a room with beings who said it was time to go. He said he didn't want to go and claimed there was someone he needed to help. And because of that being a selfless thing, they allowed it and told him he would have to live in both worlds. Some people think he's a liar and making stuff up and faking his predictions somehow, though I genuinely feel like he is telling the truth for the most part. I consider myself pretty good at body language, and I don't sense much dishonesty from him at all. He seems like really pure and honest. You would think this guy should have millions of followers, or at least like hundreds of thousands, but he only has a few thousand on his Twitter, and it seems like almost no one knows who he is. Why is someone who is like a modern day Nostradamus so unknown? It's so weird. Somehow I just managed to find these really incredible subjects that not many people seem to know about. And I don't understand why some of the most amazing subjects are so fringe. I truly believe that even if there is some sketchy stuff going on, and even if he is dishonest about some of what he says, that based on my personal experience of trying to explore my dreams in the ways that he suggested, I think there's something to it. I firmly believe there is something to these claims of precognitive dreams, and I do think it is likely connected to some kind of holographic universe type of theory, as he seemed to allude to. Or as some people call it, the Akashic Records. And that's how one of those CIA papers described it, as kind of like a matrix. I recently found him on Twitter and left a comment thanking him and asking for advice about remembering dreams better, and he seems quite friendly and helpful. He also mentions some UFO or alien connections on his page, and I'm very curious about that because I've also had some powerful UFO/alien experiences. Life sure is crazy sometimes. Exploring my dreams has opened up a whole new element of existence for me and has extended my perception of so much. I kind of feel like the dream world is the duality of the waking world. And even though it's a bit different, it's still very important, or at least it can be. Some people have even made poetic quotes which suggest that the dream world might be more real than this physical world. Then there's that other quote that goes something like, "Life is but a dream." So I mean, to me, it seems really wise to try to understand this whole other dimension more. And I wish I could have understood some of these kinds of things when I was younger. Speaking of when I was younger, I used to have really vivid and lucid dreams. and I could basically do anything I wanted, like fly around the universe and defeat anyone and get all the women I wanted and all that. And I thought I had just become bored of dreams because I could do anything. And that's why I thought I stopped remembering my dreams. Though I've learned in recent times that smoking marijuana can inhibit dreams. Now I think, like many others, that I probably stopped remembering my dreams as much because I started regularly smoking. And I've found that when I quit smoking, my dreams tend to come back relatively quickly, sometimes within a day or two. Another thing that weirded me out about dreams when I was younger was my mother always trying to interpret my dreams. And she's a very sort of new age kind of thinker, and I didn't resonate with those ideas until recently. Now I look forward to talking with my mom about dreams, and it's interesting how that works out sometimes. When you're against a certain way of thinking for so long, and then you open up to it and start actually believing in some of it. Thomas Edison apparently used a sleeping technique that may have helped with his creativity. Salvador Dali used pretty much the same technique, and I read that legend goes that Alexander the Great and Albert Einstein also used that technique, or a similar technique, and Edgar Cayce was doing something very similar too. I've been researching brain science more to try to learn more about my dreams, and some info I saw suggested that if you nap more throughout the day, you have more opportunities for REM sleep than if you just sleep once at night. REM sleep is where the dreams come in, and maybe I should try to nap more often. I personally feel like the implications of this subject in a broader sense are immense and monumental and could change the world if more people learned about this. Makes me wonder why so many people don't know about it, especially when it appears to be a natural part of our existence, and some people have known about some of these kinds of things going back into history for quite a while. Sometimes I think maybe there's some sort of intentional reason in regard to such, and that the people in power maybe don't want us to know how powerful we really are. Anyways, I think that's about it for now. It's such a fascinating subject, and there's a lot more to say as usual. However, I'm trying to keep these episodes shorter, so hopefully I'll make more episodes about this kind of stuff in the future. I guess time will tell. Much love, and bye until next time. Now that I've shared my thoughts, I encourage you to share your thoughts if you want to. Feel free to drop a comment on whichever social media is best for you, or you can send an email to exploringthoughtpodcast@gmail.com. I'll do my best to respond if it's reasonable for me to do so and if I have the time and am able to. Thank you for your time, and bye until next time.